Hey, thanks for joining me. A few months ago, I did a review on a power station by Browey, and it was one of the more unique designs that I've seen. It was basically a briefcase design, but it had a built-in flip-up solar panel. And if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to that video in the description below. But Browey recently reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in reviewing the kind of the little brother to that. This does not have a built-in solar panel, but it does have a very unique form factor. So this is the Browey portable power station. This is their S300. And as you can see, it's a 288 watt hour capacity. And I think it's a 300 watt hour AC inverter. But let's get this thing out of the box and see what you get. And then we'll dive in and find out what this thing is all about. So we get kind of a neoprene cable pouch. Let's see what's in here. All right, so we do have an AC charge brick with a DC 5521 adapter on it. So no integrated charge brick. You do have an external charge adapter, something to be aware of. And it's got some cables here. It looks like a Type C to a Type C braided USB cable. There's the other part of the power cable. And let's see what else. We've got a screwdriver in here. So that's interesting to find out what that's all about. And then we've got a DC 5521 to DC 5521. So looks like some kind of an accessory cable. So I don't see a like a dedicated solar cable for this, but yeah, let's find out what the rest of the thing looks like. Okay, this is a bit of a surprise. This says if you wish to extend the warranty to 10 years, contact us promptly via this particular email. So apparently, unless there's some kind of a strings attached sort of thing, you can register this and have a 10-year warranty, which would be far and away the longest warranty of any power station that I've ever seen. All right, looks like a full color user guide, and I'm going to dig into the details of that on my own. Let's see what else we got here. Looks like some kind of a nylon strap. And it looks like we have a actually pretty nice quality 12 volt car charging adapter, so you can charge this thing from your car. Kind of surprised that wasn't in the neoprene case. All right. All right, so I told you this thing was a unique form factor. This is really nice and compact. You know, I review so many fairly expensive power stations on there, very high capacity, and I don't very often review ones that are a lot more affordable. Now this one is going to be a lot more affordable. We'll get into pricing a little bit later, but let's just see what we got here. Some kind of a little storage pouch with a leather strap that goes around it. Guess that you could take that off if you wanted to. In fact, maybe I'll do that. It's kind of cool. I'm not sure what you'd put in there. I'm sure I'll think of something. Over here we've got, and by the way, this is very similar to the other Browey power station that I reviewed. It's got little silicone covers over all the ports to make it more weather resistant. Looks like it's got a light maybe. I'm not sure if I have to turn the main power on. Nope. All right, it's got a nice diffuser cover on it, so it gives it a nice soft light. This is interesting. It's got a thermometer and what appears to be a humidistat, so you can tell the relative humidity and the current air temperature on the side there. So that's kind of cool. I'm not sure if that's anything or not. But getting back to the front, by the way, this thing is super light. I'll have to put the weight down here. This would be something you could easily just tote around with you. It's not heavy at all. And over here we've got obviously our 12 volt. I assume it's 10 amp, 12 volt. It might be 8 amp. I'll have to, again, get into the specs later. We have a single 3-prong outlet here. Looks like we got a couple of Type A USBs. Those are 18 watt quick charge. And we got a couple of USB-Cs, and those are also 18 watt output only. Well, there is actually one that's listed as a 100 watt, so a PD 100 watt input and output. So you can charge it through the USB port if you wanted to, which begs the question, could you charge it through the USB port and the solar port at the same time? Don't know. We'll have to find that out. All right, now in terms of the inputs here, you have your solar input or your charging input, so you can AC charge there, you solar charge there, and you charge it from the car as well. So AC and DC gets charged through that single port. You got a couple of DC 5525 or 5521 accessory port connectors right there. So a little LCD display there, or LED. All right, so interesting little form factor here. I'm gonna go find out how functional this thing is, run it through kind of the usual tests. I'm sure it does not have things like UPS mode, and it does not have a lot of other frills. I'm pretty sure there's no mobile app. But again, let me go through the manual and figure out what this thing is all about, and I'll report back in about 2 seconds. All right, let's do a DC discharge capacity test on this little Browey power station here. Now it's only rated for 288 watt hours, as you would expect for something this small and light. But we know what we're not going to get 288 watt hours out of it, typically, at least not with most power stations. So we're going to find out what kind of usable watt hour capacity we can actually get out of the DC ports. Now the DC ports on this are on the side, so we're going to use the car adapters. Use my little test meter here, and we'll turn on the DC ports here on the side. And we should be getting a volt reading. So we are reading currently 12.2 volts. So let's go ahead and dial that up. Let's see if I can get to a full 10 amps. There we are at 10 amps, 11.1 volts. All right, so we're going to let this run. You can see we're pulling 121 watts out of this on the power station side. We'll let it run all the way down, and we'll find out how many actual usable watt hours that will tick up here, how many we actually got. So check back when it's done. All right, you can see we're at 0% state of charge here, but we're still pulling 11.3 volts. So this does appear to be a regulated 12 volt port, which regulated a little on the low side, but not alarmingly low. So it's just slightly below at 11.3 volts. So it's still within the 12 volt spec. All right, it looks like we've just caught the end of our usable capacity test out of the DC ports. You can see we ran just over 2 hours, and we accumulated 235.88 watt hours. So that is just a hair under 82% of rated capacity, that 288 watt hours of rated capacity. And that puts this right down the middle as an average number from all of the several dozen power stations that I have tested over the last several years. So pretty decent number out of this Browey power station. All right, let's get this thing fully charged back up, and we'll see what we can get out of the AC ports. All right, we are fully recharged here on this little Browey power station, and we're going to do an AC discharge capacity test and find out how much capacity we actually get through this little 300 watt AC inverter. So we are going to take a look at the side here. I'm going to use my little 200 watt space heater as a load. There is only one AC port on this right here, and it is basically upside down. So I'm going to use my little adapter here and then flip that around, and then we're going to plug the heater right into the front of this. All right, so now I just need to switch on the AC inverter, which is a single button over there. See, we're at 100% charge. The heater is now outputting. Let's check the voltage. So under load, we are at 113 volts. So I think they consider this a 110 outlet rather than a 120 outlet. But we are getting still 113 volts. That's not bad under load for a small heater on a small power station like this. To watt hours. All right, we are logging watt hours. So we will check back when this thing has shut itself down and find out how many usable watt hours we actually can get versus that rated 288 watt hours that the unit has. So we'll check back when it's done and see what we got.
2 hours later.
All right, looks like our AC discharge capacity test is all done. Let me hook this up to grid power so we can read what we ended up with. We got a total of 230 watt hours out of a rated 288. So that puts it pretty much right at 80% of rated capacity, which would put this still in the average zone, although on the lower threshold of average in terms of usable capacity out of the AC inverter. Still not bad numbers for such a budget power station. All right, let's get this thing charged back up, and we'll run it through some more paces. All right, so as I've shown before, it does come with this little charge brick here. And if we plug this in to the DC 5525 input, we can see that we're going to get a fairly low input power here. It's going to climb up to something like 65 watts. Yeah, 64 watts. And yeah, and it's going to charge pretty slow. It might take upwards of 5 hours if that's how we're charging it with the included AC charge brick. But Browey does give you an alternate method, and I think you can actually dual charge. So let's test that. So it's got a USB connector on the bottom here, USB-C. That is a PD100 in and out port. And if you happen to have a USB-C PD100 adapter or charger like this guy right here, and you need a cable that is rated for 100 watts, I'm not 100% sure if this one is rated for 100 watts, but let's just find out what we get. So right now we are getting, as I said, 64 watts there. But let me plug this into grid power, see what happens. So now we've got Type C USB input and AC, and see if we get any extra power out of that. All right, we are already starting to climb. 115 watts. All right, so now we've effectively knocked that down from 5 hours to what? Probably 2.5 hours. We've cut that charge time in half, I would guess. Let's actually, if I disconnect the charge brick, how much are we actually getting out of this particular USB charger? Yeah, we're only getting 51 watts, and that's probably because the cable I have here doesn't support 100-watt charging. Let me try a different cable. All right, now this cable claims that it is 100 watts, although I don't know if I've ever actually seen that. But let's just try. Let's see what we get out of that. So I know that the cable does make a difference. All right, we're already doing better. So we're at, yeah, okay. So with this cable, we're at 85 watts in. And now if I plug in the charge brick, we're going to be dual charging. You can see we've got 2 charging indicators there. And now we're at 152 watts. So yeah, that is a pretty dramatic improvement. That's almost triple the speed we were charging at with just the included AC charge adapter. So I would say you might just skip the AC charge adapter and just charge it with the USB-C, as long as you've got something that is outputting, in the neighborhood of 100 watts. Yeah, because you'll get much better charge rates. So I'll get this charged in something under the 2-hour range would be my guess. So that is totally doable. All right, we'll let this thing top off, and then we'll run it through some load testing and see how that does. All right, let's do some load testing on this AC inverter. Now, this particular power station from Browey has a 300 watt continuous rated AC inverter, and it is rated for a peak surge of 600 watts. So I'm going to use a variable charge rate power station to adjust the charge rate on this. Let me go ahead and turn on the AC inverter. We're going to start it out low. And I think we're going to get it to about 200 watts or so. All right, we're at 191 watts. And let's see if we can get this up to a maximum of 300 watts. This should get us pretty close. So 281 watts. I'm not sure that I can get it closer than that. Maybe if I hook up a light. Actually, I need an extension cord to do that because there's only one outlet. All right, I got an extension cord plugged in. Let's try this again. All right, 283 watts. Let me add a light source and see if that will put us a little bit closer. We are just at 308. Let me go ahead and start the timer. All right, definitely had no problem with 10 minutes, and we were at just a little bit over 300 watts, and we were pulling pretty much on the decibel meter about 57, 58 decibels the entire time. So let me take some of this load back off, and then let's find out what it's going to take to actually trip this thing. All right, so as you can see, we're at 284 watts right now. All right, let's see what happens. Let's see, I'm going to try cranking it up to 400 momentarily, or very close to it. And we did trip. Yeah, we tripped after about 3 or 4 seconds. I got it to 375. So yeah, it does shut itself down, and there is a little bit of headroom there. So we ran it for 10 minutes straight at over 300 watts, at about 310, 312 watts. And then when I tried to get it up to 375, it gave me about 2 or 3 seconds, and then it shut us down with overload protection. So I have every reason to believe that that 600 watt surge rating is probably accurate, and the 300 watt continuous rating is definitely a pass. So this thing actually overperformed just a little bit. All right, let's find out how clean or relatively dirty the AC output power is from this AC inverter. And for that, we're going to use my crotchety old guitar amp here. It doesn't even have a grounding pin on its plug anymore. Somebody removed that somewhere down the road in the past. I'm going to plug it into grid power, and we're going to get a baseline reading on that. So I'm going to use my little lapel mic here, and we're going to boost the audio about, I don't know, 8 or 9 decibels so you can hear what grid power sounds like, which would be our cleanest option. All right, so let me go ahead and turn it on and hear how that sounds. All right, that is grid power, just a very slight electronic hum. All right, so now let me unplug this. Let me turn the AC inverter on. All right, now I've got it plugged into the AC inverter on the Browey unit, which the fan is still running because I really ran this pretty hard since I had ran it to overload. So I'm sure it's still warm. That's the only reason the fan is running. But let me go ahead and turn the amp back on, and I'll boost it by the same amount, and we'll see if we hear any noticeable buzz. All right, so clearly some noticeable buzz coming out of the AC inverter. And that's not a problem unless you plan to try to use this to power an amp like this or some other PA system. So I wouldn't recommend this for sound amplification power or ham radio for that matter. So just be aware of that. All right, now we're not going to run a UPS test on this because this does not claim in the specs that it has a UPS function. But I do want to see if it will at least allow us to charge and discharge at the same time. So I'm going to plug a load in here. I do have the AC inverter already on. And you'll see here that we are going to count that up. I'm going to let that stabilize. All right, so we have leveled off at about 186 to 188 watts. Let me go ahead and plug in the AC adapter here and see if we are going to change, if we're going to pass through power at all. We do see that the plug is now showing, and we are inputting 36 watts. Yeah, 64 watts now. So we're inputting 64, we are outputting 185 watts. So this is not technically pass-through power, I don't believe. This is actually just power going in the battery, power coming out of the battery. So 186 watts coming out while we're putting 63 watts in. So you can charge and discharge this thing at the same time. This is not something that all power stations allow you to do, although I will say that the vast majority of them do allow you to do this. So yeah, so this one definitely does allow you to do this. All right, so this little Browey power station has a input voltage for DC solar input from 12 up to 30 volts and a maximum amperage or current rating of 5 amps. So the maximum input on this MPPT charge controller supposedly is 100 watts. But I'm going to overpanel that to 200 watts because my 200 watt panel does have a VOC or voltage open circuit rating of about 23 volts. Now, you could not tell me where the sun is in the sky right now because it is completely overcast. In fact, it's already kind of almost 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's raining. So you can't even tell where the sun is in the sky. And yet, we are going to get a voltage from this panel. So I just want to point this out. If I check the leads on my connection here, I'm not sure if you can make that out, but I'm still getting 18.3 volts, and it's got a VOC of 23 volts. So that voltage will climb when we get more sun, but we are getting pretty good voltage now. So I know that I'm safe with this 200 watt panel. And let me go ahead and connect it up to the MC4 connectors, turn on the disconnect, enable the disconnect so that I am able to get power. And we're going to find out if this little Browey power station will start charging itself without me having to do anything when the sun hopefully comes out in the morning, or at least at some point during the day. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the MC4 cables. Turn on disconnect. And it probably won't even detect, well, it's detecting a connection surprisingly, but it's not going to actually charge because we're not going to be pushing any current with this kind of overcast rain conditions. All right, so let's check back in the morning or sometime mid-morning, let's say, and find out how we're doing and see if this thing is actually trying to charge. But you can see we're at 0% state of charge right now. See you in the morning. All right, it is the next day, and actually it's the evening of the next day because it pretty much rained the entire day and was overcast for the last couple of hours, and the sun has already gone down. But somehow we still did manage to get about 17% state of charge up from 0. So I'm actually kind of surprised by that. So the big takeaway though is that it did resume solar charging on its own. I didn't have to do anything to it to get it to resume solar charging. And the fact that we only got 17% state of charge right now after a full day is because you would not have been able to point anywhere in the sky to tell me where the sun was because it was that overcast all day long. So I'm surprised we got any state of charge. So with that 100 watt maximum, I think it's very safe to say that this 288 watt hour power station would fully recharge itself really in just a matter of about half a day of normal decent sun conditions. So I would definitely give this power station a pass on the solar charging test. Okay, to wrap up on this power station, I will add that it also did pass my 24-hour DC fridge test. So it's successfully kept my, I think it's about a 28 or maybe 30 quart DC fridge running for a full 24 hours at a moderate 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And it did this despite the fact that it does have a hard-coded auto shutdown that is not user configurable. And also add that because it is just a 288 watt hour capacity unit, 24 hours is probably about the maximum runtime that you'll get on a DC fridge with a unit kind of in this capacity class. And by the way, if you want to know what other kinds of common things that you can run on something like this and for how long they will run, I'll put a link to my Google spreadsheet in the video description below, and you can download that spreadsheet, and then you simply key in the battery capacity, which in this case is 288 watt hours, and then the inverter spec, which is 300 watts continuous, and then the spreadsheet will do the rest for you. So this S300 does use lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry, so you can expect to still have about 80% of the original usable battery capacity even after a full 3,500 charge and discharge cycles. And that should translate to roughly 10 plus years of service life, even with daily use. So what don't you get with this particular unit? Well, you definitely don't get UPS mode, you don't get things like wireless charging, and you don't get mobile app control. But what you do get is a reasonably solid no-frills power station with a pretty unique vertical form factor that might allow you to store it in some tight places that a traditional cube form factor type power station might not fit into. And it also does come with a generous 5-year warranty standard that is apparently extendable to a whopping 10 years if you take the extra step of registering via that QR code that's on the card that came in the box. Okay, so how much does this S300 cost? Well, it lists on Amazon US for $199 US. But at the time that I'm releasing this video, there's also a $12 coupon that you can just click on and apply on the Amazon listing. And there's also a discount code that's, I believe, good through the end of March 2024. And that's good for another $10 off on top of the coupon code, which should put the final price at just about $178 plus tax. So I'd say if you prefer something with one of the longest warranties in the product space, and you don't really care about extras like wireless charging or mobile app control or UPS mode, for example, and this unique form factor kind of appeals to you, then I'd say this power station would make a pretty decent choice for things like charging your portable electronics, powering some lights, or any kind of other low power load like that. And of course, I'll put a link in the discount code information for this product in the video description below if you do want to go check it out. Okay, I think that's a wrap. I do hope you found at least something helpful in the video. If you did, please consider clicking on that like button for me. I'd very much appreciate that. If you're not already a subscriber, well, maybe consider subscribing as well. I do offer my sincere thanks for stopping by and watching this video with me, and I do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.